Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, a volatile week in equity markets comes to an end with futures higher. The week started with a 3% drop for the S&P 500. The index then gained in two of its next three sessions, including yesterday's 2.3% advance, its best session since November of 2022. Lori Calvasina, head of U.S. equity strategy at RBC Capital Markets, says a lot of negative catalysts converged this week.
We were vulnerable for a lot of different reasons. I think that's all come to play this week. And obviously the yen carry trade, what happened with the economic data last week, that's all front and center. But we also had stretched sentiment on a variety of indicators that were basically telling me for a while, regardless of what the issue was, we were vulnerable to some downside.
The RBC's Lori Calvasina attributed yesterday's gains to the labor market. Fewer people applied for unemployment benefits than expected.
Well, at one point, Nathan, interest rate swaps implied a 60% chance of an emergency rate cut by the Fed in the coming week, well before its next scheduled meeting in September. Current pricing suggests about 40 basis points of cuts for September. But Richmond Fed President Thomas Barkin says policymakers will be in a good position to assess the economy over the coming months.
I think you've got some time in a healthy economy to figure out whether this is an economy that's gently moving into a normalizing state that will allow you to, in a steady, deliberate way, normalize rates, and stick the landing, if I could use another balance beam analogy. Or, is this one where you really do have to lean into it?
As for the labor market, Richmond Fed's Thomas Barkin says he does not see widespread layoffs as imminent.
And Karen, another Fed official signaling he's not ready to cut rates just yet. Kansas City Fed President Jeffrey Schmid says, quote, "We are not quite there in cooling inflation." Schmid is among the more hawkish Fed officials.
Well, in Asia, Nathan, China's consumer prices rose more than expected in July, and that's boosting the case for more central bank support. CPI came in at 0.5%, beating estimates. Bloomberg's John Liu says a lot of that rise came from bad weather.
This data characterizes this economy as being one with very little demand and one in which companies' businesses have very weak pricing power.
And Bloomberg's John Liu adds that China's Politburo has vowed to make boosting consumer spending a greater policy focus.
All right, let's check some stocks on the move this morning, Karen. Shares of Taiwan Semiconductor are up more than 4%. Revenue rose 45% in July, accelerating its pace of growth from the June quarter. TSMC is also bolstering hopes for sustained strong demand for artificial intelligence chips from the likes of NVIDIA. Also keeping an eye on shares of Expedia. They're up nearly 11%. The travel company posted earnings above estimates. And Pitney Bowes is surging 22%. The shipping firm also topped earnings estimates.
Well, now to the latest on the presidential race, Nathan. Former President Donald Trump is looking to reclaim the spotlight after the wave of Democratic enthusiasm for Vice President Kamala Harris. In an hour-long news conference at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, Trump challenged Harris to 3 debates next month on Fox, ABC, and NBC. And he went after the vice president for not answering reporters' questions herself.
She hasn't done an interview. She can't do an interview. She's barely competent. And she can't do an interview. But I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight.
Till now, Trump had suggested he didn't see a need to debate Harris because he was ahead in the polls.
Well, Karen, the former president also put his record against the Federal Reserve, saying presidents should have some say over monetary policy.
In my case, I made a lot of money. I was very successful, and I think I have a better instinct than, in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or the chairman.
Trump also dismissed the idea there wouldn't be a peaceful transfer of power if he's not elected. He also said he does not think abortion rights will be a big issue in the campaign. As for the debates, Vice President Harris says she looks forward to debating Trump on ABC News September 10th, but she will not appear with him on Fox before that. She will appear with President Biden next week in their first joint appearance since the president dropped his reelection bid. The White House says Biden and Harris will head to Maryland next Thursday to discuss how they're lowering costs for Americans.
Well, Nathan, Vice President Harris has received some major support from Silicon Valley. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has that story.
A group of about 1,200 technology workers has pledged to back her ticket, Tech for Kamala, in a public letter calling Harris an archetypical innovator and champion of technology who worked to access STEM education, promote entrepreneurship, and close the digital equity gap. The people who signed the letter did so in personal capacities, not representing companies, but they come from companies including Apple, Meta, and Salesforce. It says it wants to mobilize the community of over 7 million workers. In San Francisco, Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Ed. Now to the latest from the Middle East. The U.S., Qatar, and Egypt are calling for a new round of ceasefire talks to be held August 15th. It would be the latest attempt by the Biden administration to end the war in Gaza as the Middle East braces for an expected Iranian attack on Israel. Bloomberg's Rosalind Matheson says negotiations have been in the works for a while.
This has been, as you know, these very long-running discussions around how to get a ceasefire for Gaza and to stop the war, at least for now, between Israel and Hamas. And all these efforts have been going on around the clock for months from the U.S., Qatar and Egypt and others to try and get everybody over the line. But the sticking point that really remains is that what is this ceasefire going to be a pathway to?
Bloomberg's Roz Matheson says Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's office posted on X that Israel will send a delegation to the planned discussions. There's no immediate comment from Hamas.
And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's John Tucker. John, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. Bring an umbrella to work today and hold on tight. The remnants of Debbie will be with us soon. Rob Carolan is tracking the storm for us this morning.
John, the remnants of Debbie pass well to the west of the tri-state area. That means we miss out on the heavy rain, but we will see some gusty winds. That's why the National Weather Service has the region under a wind advisory from noon today till 11 p.m. tonight. Could see some gusts up over 35 miles an hour, and some of the thunderstorms associated with the east side of what was Debbie. There will be some heavy downpours from time to time. John?
Bloomberg meteorologist Rob Carolan. Police in Vienna this morning announcing a third teenager has been arrested in connection with a foiled attack on now canceled Taylor Swift concerts. The 18-year-old was taken into custody after allegedly being in contact with the main suspect. Investigators found bomb-making materials at one of the suspect's homes. Officials say a suspect has confessed to planning to kill as many people as possible outside the concert venue in Vienna. After 2 lackluster years, Wall Street bonuses, they're poised to jump in virtually every sector of the industry. Let's get details from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
Debt underwriting is likely to be the biggest winner. According to a report from compensation consultant Johnson Associates, bankers who help companies sell debt may see payouts swell as much as 35% as deals pick up and capital markets rebound from multi-year lows. The forecast follows strong second-quarter performances from American and European banks after rising stock prices around the world fueled demand on trading desks. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
Freed last week in the largest East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War, 71-year-old Oleg Orlov is speaking out and describing wide-scale repression in Russia under Vladimir Putin. He tells the AP people are in prison for merely criticizing authorities, something unseen since the days of dictator Joseph Stalin. Global news 24 hours a day, whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm John Tucker. This is Bloomberg. Nathan and Karen.
All right, John, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. A lot of people calling it the most exciting game in Olympic basketball history. Semifinals against Serbia, who the U.S. had blown out twice previously. This time the U.S. found itself down by 17, by 13 entering the fourth quarter. A furious rally and a 95-91 U.S. victory. Plenty of heroes, none more so than Steph Curry, who poured in 36 points. His coach, both in the NBA and the Olympics, is Steve Kerr.
It's impossible to rank Steph's performances because there have been so many of them, so many big games. But it's different playing for USA basketball than it is playing for your NBA team. You know, you're literally playing for your country. And so it didn't surprise me at all that Steph had the game that he did.
So it's the U.S. against France tomorrow for the gold. As it was 3 years ago, this time the French will have home court advantage. Noah Lyles did not win the gold medal in the 200 meters, settled for bronze, and then came came a bigger surprise. He has COVID. He's had it since Tuesday. He was allowed to run. The gold won by Letziel Tobogo from Botswana. There were 3 U.S. gold medals in track and field. Grant Holloway, the 110-meter hurdle. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone won her second straight gold in the 400-meter hurdles. Tara Davis-Woodhall, the women's long jump. Yankees in the rain in the Bronx. Lost to the Angels 9-4 L.A. with a 6-run fifth inning, knocking out Nestor Cortez, who suffered his 10th loss. Yankees are 20 over 500, but at home only 30-26. Still tied for first with Baltimore, who lost in Toronto. Mets won 9-1 at Colorado. Pete Alonso homered twice. Mets move ahead of Atlanta in both the NL East and for the third NL wildcard. Preseason football on a rainy night at MetLife. The Giants got 2 second-quarter touchdowns from Eric Gray. The first was a 48-yard run. They beat the Lions 14-3. Hall of Fame golfer Chichi Rodriguez has passed away at 88. John Stashauer, Bloomberg Sports. Down to Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. Former President Donald Trump is looking to reclaim the momentum in the 2024 presidential race.
Our country is right now in the most dangerous position it's ever been in from an economic standpoint, from a safety standpoint.
And in an hour-long news conference from his Mar-a-Lago resort, the Republican presidential nominee challenged his new Democratic opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, to 3 debates next month, after earlier suggesting he didn't see a need for them to do any debates at all. Joining us for more, Jennifer Lawless, professor and chair of the politics department at the University of Virginia. Jennifer, good morning. So we've gone from 0 to 3 from the former president when it comes to debates. What do you make of this whipsaw from the former president and his attempt to reclaim the spotlight from Mar-a-Lago?
Good morning. I think it demonstrates that he feels far more vulnerable now running against Kamala Harris than he did against Joe Biden. And he also realizes that she's gaining momentum and he can't duck the debates. If he's going to win this race, it has to be a real contest and people have to hear from him. It's not going to be an automatic win.
We've seen the enthusiasm on the Democratic side, the kinds of rallies that we used to see for former President Trump with Vice President Harris filling stadiums now. Is this just a sugar rush, or is this where the momentum is going?
It might have started out as a sugar rush, but it seems like it's now a substantively excited electorate. And the thing that Harris has going for her is she only needs to keep this up for 90 days. This is not a 15 or 16-month campaign where she needs to sustain the excitement. So if I were Donald Trump right now, I would also be nervous because the Democrats had been pretty lackluster for several months, and now the excitement is certainly on their side.
Now, the former president did criticize Vice President Harris during that news conference for not doing very many interviews herself, not appearing at any news conferences since she announced her campaign. Is there a risk there for Vice President Harris to be perceived as ducking the media?
I think if she continues this way, there's a risk, but it's only been a couple of weeks and it's actually only been a couple of days since she received the delegate support that she needed to become the presumptive nominee. So my sense is that over the course of the next 90 days, she will engage with the media. She will do these interviews. But right now, she's introducing herself and her running mate to the American people.
And Vice President Harris does say that she looks forward to debating former President Trump on the encounter that he did agree to with President Biden on September 10th, but isn't going to appear with him on Fox before that. Should she agree to all 3 that the former president put out there?
Of her to participate in 3 debates, but I don't think that she has to agree to the 3 that he put out there. She's running just like he is. She has say and agency over which networks she debates on, what the rules are. And frankly, Fox News has been denying the 2020 election. They've been fined for it. I can see why Kamala Harris and Democrats in general would be very reluctant to use them as a venue.
So do you think that they actually are going to debate if Harris does not agree to the Fox debate, that they will at least have that one encounter or more beyond that?
I do. I think that the September 10th ABC debate is now basically set. They've both agreed to those terms. Donald Trump already backed out once and then went against what he said and joined the debate again. If he backs out again, it'll just look too wishy-washy. I can't imagine that he's going to do that.
Now, we just got word this morning from the White House, moments ago, in fact, that President Biden is going to join Vice President Harris on the campaign trail for the first time since he ended his bid last month. What can we expect from the president now to share a stage with his vice president for the first time since she started her campaign now nearly 3 weeks ago?
I think it sends a really important message about Democratic unity. It'll also highlight that he has completely supported her in this move. Donald Trump yesterday during the press conference tried to suggest that Joe Biden was pushed out, that Kamala Harris had something to do about it, that he's very angry. And by appearing on the campaign trail with Harris, Biden is going to put all of those rumors to rest.
So in our last minute here, Professor, what are you expecting as we get closer to the Democratic convention and potentially these debates next month?
Well, for Donald Trump, the goal is going to be to paint Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as completely out of touch, as radical extremists from the liberal left. He tried a lot of that messaging yesterday at the press conference. I think we'll see a major focus on immigration and crime. And what the Harris campaign is going to emphasize for the next 90 days are freedom and the future. The decision is going to be very, very clear to the American public. It's just going to be about which side is able to mobilize its base more. And right now, the Democrats look like they have that momentum on their side.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed at 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.